All right. Friends not watching this live. Oh, okay. All right. I just sent the invite to John. Let's see if we got it. Let's see. Yes. Hello. Okay. I'm expanding. There we go. All right, John. Can you hear?
Hey. Yeah. Can you
Hello?
hear me?
Okay. For some reason, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Excellent.
Hang on.
Yes. Wait. For some reason, it's not letting me see your picture.
It says live access needed to go live on a video as a guest. You can go live on audio, is what it says.
Okay. I wonder why it's not letting me. Huh. Okay. Gift microphone camera. Well, let's see. Can't turn on camera because he doesn't have access to the video. That's. There's probably something in the setting that you have to like putz around with.
Hang on. I'll just double check it real quick. I'll be back in like literally 2 seconds.
Of course, yeah. I'll be waiting. Yes, I'm glad we did this. I'm so happy. Okay. All right. All right. So the audio is good. He might need more followers. Nah. I've had people on with less followers, with less followers than him. Video, audio, all that stuff. Will Trump be the 47th president? I don't think so. He's probably too handsome for maybe, I mean, that's why you see that when you look like substandard like me, you get on easy. So that's how it. Yeah, it did work. It did work. So all right, let's go. Okay, guests. Let's go on. Accept. All right.
So it says it's still saying live access needed to go live with video. I don't know what the fuck that means.
Me neither. So interesting.
I think I need 1,000 followers to go live with video.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, John, I am so sorry. Do you mind
Yeah.
if I still ask you
That's
questions? Do you want to go through this?
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. I just checked it. I need 1,000 followers to go live with video, but 200 to go live with audio. I'm gonna have to work on that. But yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. I'm sorry that it took me so long to be here.
Why are you sorry? I feel like your time is so valuable. You're doing all this traveling. You're speaking about Algorand so much. Like so this is a stain on me.
Gio, it's so good to be here. And you know what? Like a lot of people out there have no idea about blockchains, and they're like, "What is that? Can I get involved? Is it too late? Is it interesting still? Oh, I heard about it a few years ago. Is it still cool?" Like, and on top of that, for people who are like, like, what's a career I can get into that's going to be interesting? It's going to help people. It's going to maybe pay well. And so a lot of these questions, the answer is, working in this computer science space that is blockchain. It's very cool. It's very sexy. So yeah, happy to explore it with you.
So okay, great. I'm gonna fire away. So someone commented this, and I really liked it, and I think they're wrong, but I would love your input on this. Someone said that blockchain is a solution looking for a problem, and I know the common retort, like what people are saying is like, well, why don't we just use databases with good encryption? So
Yeah. Hey, listen, I've heard that a number of times. I heard it from my own family. I've heard it, from my wife. And the thing is that blockchain is a very unique thing. Applying it in certain contexts. So, the application of blockchain in for certain applications can be a killer thing. It can add virtue and features that are just not possible with traditional databases and traditional computing platforms.
like what?
But so I'll tell you, I've got three great examples. I'm going to come back in a second, but I
Sure.
want to just say this skepticism that people have, it's not unfounded because I think blockchain has been hyped and hyped and hyped to shit, and people are thinking to themselves, my God, people are saying it's gonna cure cancer. Blockchain doesn't. It's not the answer to everything, but there are a number of use cases where it really sings and it makes the world a difference. And I would go as far to say there's certain things out there that if you don't use blockchain, you just can't achieve certain things. You can't achieve certain classes of application. So, what are the kind of three things I think blockchain kills at? Number one, when you want to disintermediate things. So, what does that mean? It means removing the middleman. So much in our lives, right? We're paying someone to be in between us and a service. And it drives me insane. And I've got some like examples of this. When I want to order an Uber, I'm paying Uber for the privilege of connecting me to a person who would have driven me anyway.
Yep.
When I want to order, sorry, when I want to buy some concert tickets or whatever, um, I have to pay Ticketmaster for some bullshit fee, where they're scalping everyone, including the artist and the people who want to go and see the person who's performing. And this is pervasive. This middlemanism, it is like it infests every product and service that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. And blockchain can eliminate this. Instead of buying my insurance off some broker, I buy it off a person who's willing to offer insurance, like they're taking a bet.
Yeah.
Instead of dealing with for example, secondary sales
Yeah.
of tickets, I can go directly peer to peer with you, and I can buy your ticket, and I don't have to worry
Yeah.
that it's real, because all of that stuff is taken care of by the math and the cryptography and all that.
And a smart contract.
Smart contracts, right? And so I don't have to trust you, I just have to trust the blockchain. And that's one example. Now let me go to another one. So often, we're living in a world where we don't actually own things, dude. We are allowed to use them. And by the way, this is everything, man. This is Netflix, Spotify, YouTube. You know those movies you buy on YouTube? They're not yours. The books you buy on your Kindle, they're not yours. Your watch history on your YouTube account is not yours. Even the very videos you post on this TikTok are not on your cell phone. They are owned by TikTok servers, and if they turn off the thing, you lose everything. And one of the things that blockchain does really well, just like back in the day, we wouldn't have used Spotify. We all had like MP3 collections and stuff, right? I mean, I know this is a while ago, but like before Spotify, people just had like copies of digital music on their computer. And so blockchain is enabling that again. It's enabling the person to own things. So when you buy a book on blockchain, you own a copy of the literal book. There's the ones and zeros of the book are out there just for you. When you own assets like Bitcoin, right, or Cardano or Algorand, any of these blockchains, when you own that asset, you can move that money, and so you don't need someone's permission to move $1 million of it or $100,000 of it. If I go to my bank right now, they won't let me take out more than $50,000. If I'm using blockchain, I can send you $1 million without asking anyone's permission, and that's powerful.
Anytime you're ready, you want to do that.
yeah, exactly. And then last thing, there's one or two more, but like maybe one of the other sexier ones is around like the truthfulness of things that we use. So provenance of products is really important. Like when you buy a Rolex, how do you know it's real? When you buy a pair of Christian Louboutin heels, how do you know they're real? When you buy any luxury good. And so we're going to see, and we're seeing it already, companies leverage things like Algorand and other blockchains in order to provide someone with a digital certificate of ownership, so that their product doesn't lose value. And so that, you can prove that the MacBook is real. You can prove that the car is real. And that's powerful. And, sure, centralized databases and normal computer tech stuff has its place, and it does amazing things. But it can't do those things. And that's the difference.
Wow, that was excellent. That was a great breakdown as to like what blockchain can do, outside of like traditional data structures.
Right.
All right. Okay. So, my next question then is, what is Algorand doing to attract devs?
So, the biggest problem that all these blockchains have is that they don't make it easy for people. Like, not everyone is a geek. Not everyone has, like you were mentioning, I heard you in the chat when you were trying to get people who, by the way, thank you for getting me 200 followers. That was nice of you.
Glad to do it.
Yeah. Let's fucking go. But like when you were in the chat, you were saying, you got a degree in statistics and you mathematics. Sure. But not everyone is technical like that, right? Some people have different types of skills in life, and not everyone is as comfortable with numbers and with computers and stuff, right? And so, so what we have to do is we have to make the product fun. We've got to make it like an iPhone. Like when people get a new iPhone at Christmas time or whenever, or their birthday, they open it up and they're like super excited. It's easy to use. It's obvious. They straight away, they have a relationship with the product and with the user interface. Mm-hmm. And so one of the reasons that I think blockchain is maybe intimidating to people, and when they first approach it, is that it's just not easy enough to use. And developers are the same, because even developers who, by their very nature are a little bit geekier, right? They're people who
Yeah.
have been out there messing with computers for a while. It's still a totally new thing to them, and it takes them time to learn this stuff.
Yeah.
And so when they get up on Saturday morning, they want to go out and enjoy themselves, not spend all day learning a new computer programming language. So what are we doing? What we're doing is we are one of, I would say, very few blockchains who've recognized this and who are meeting developers where they are. So we're taking normal programming languages that you learn when you're in school, when you're in
Python.
high school, Python, right? Right. And Python, by the way, is used in all the big banks around the world when they're
Oh yeah.
building their financial models. It's used in schools because it's simple to teach kids and young students. It's used in AI, ML, like all the machine learning stuff, the llamas, the LLMs, ChatGPT, all that stuff. It's used all over the place. And so it's pervasive from beginners to experts. And by making Python the language of apps on Algorand, because if you want to build an app, and by the way, as an entrepreneur, as a businessman, as a businesswoman, you can go out there, you can look at something like Algorand as a platform to build a business. You can now build that business using Python. You don't have to learn some weird programming language that's, from the future or whatever. You can just use regular Python.
You can use so yeah, like you can actually just get some like smart high school kid who knows coding, and they could start building dApps for you.
Right, 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 exactly. And so if you're thinking of doing a startup, if you're building on Ethereum, which a lot of people do, they kind of go, "Oh, I'll build it on Ethereum." I mean, you want to have deep pockets, but like outside of that, you're going to be like paying for blockchain engineers and Solidity and other esoteric and weird and wonderful programming languages. Instead, if you choose to build your startup on Algorand, you can just go out there, hire regular developers who know Python, which doesn't cost anywhere near as much as a Solidity developer, and get things going.
Interesting too. You know that I'm glad you actually mentioned Ethereum. So I know that like people sometimes try to like say like, oh well, there's Hedera Hashgraph, which is really fast, and then there's Algorand, and the thing that I find so beautiful about Algorand is that Algorand is it's almost like an entirely self-sufficient blockchain. So Hedera is limited to since Hedera uses the EVM, the Ethereum virtual machine, it is limited by Ethereum's weaknesses. But Algorand has its own. It has its AVM, which is much more scalable, much more quick, much more secure than Ethereum. So, and not just that, Algorand has its own oracle. Like, right, Ethereum relies on what Chainlink and that's the one I know. But Algorand has Gora. I know it has other oracles, but Gora is the big one, right?
Yeah, absolutely, it is. And here's what I'd say. Um, like blockchains are like football clubs, right? There's like, you go to the game and then there's a massive fight afterwards, right? So, I try to be less tribal about it and be reasonable. I would say, the folks there's a number of blockchains out there that have super passionate people who are making literally a difference on the world stage, working on these projects. I think Hedera is one of them.
Yeah.
I spoke to Lehman a number of times. He's the founder of Hedera, and I
Oh yeah.
think it's different for sure. It's different to Algorand, but I think they're doing interesting things, and we're kind of working together, Lehman and I, starting this foundation or sorry alliance, I should say, that's trying to make things easier to use on blockchain generally. Okay, outside of any one of them, but we can maybe talk about that in a bit. But yeah, you're right. In the sense there is a difference between Ethereum and Algorand, and that difference, as you quite rightly point out, is the Algorand virtual machine. Now, to someone on this call, on this like not call, but on this space or whatever, what do you call it on TikTok when you do this? Is that live?
Live, just a
Okay, yeah.
live stream.
All right.
Or,
For someone on this live, right, who's not heard of this stuff before, you're probably thinking, huh, like what the hell is an AVM or an EVM? I mean, who cares about that shit? Answer. Okay. In your computer, at home, it's an Intel chip. People know Intel. It's been around for a very long time. People will also know Apple Silicon, right? It's like the M1, the M2 Pro, this thing you get in your phone, the Apple Silicon in your iPhone. These are CPUs or chips that do all the calculations inside your phone, inside your MacBook, inside your Windows computer. Every computer needs one of these chips or it has no brain, right? The chip is the brain. And so you can think of the AVM and the EVM like the brain of these blockchain networks. They are the thing that runs the code, that runs the smart contracts, that runs the apps, that moves the money. And so, yeah, that's what the AVM is. Now, you might think, well, why do I care about AVM versus EVM? What's the difference? I mean, the answer is long, but the short answer is AVM is like the Apple Silicon of the blockchain world. It's fast, it's efficient, and it's sexy. EVM is like the Intel. Nothing wrong with it. It's been around a long time, but it's just a little bit long in the tooth, and some of the design decisions have hung around a little bit too long. And I think AVM is a great example of where we have innovated on top of an existing technology like the EVM and made things better for people.
Okay. I have I want to get back actually to like what we were talking about right before, how like people of various skill levels can like get onto the Algorand ecosystem and start building. So like clearly people who've like graduated college or people who are actually in the field, they can go on to Algorand. So let's say you're a kid who's like in high school. Let's say you're 14, 15 and you're curious about coding. Like what can Algorand do for that kid? Like what path is there for that kid in Algorand?
Yeah, totally. So we are trying to make it as easy as possible in many different ways. So the first way, a very real way is like make the language easy. So if you, sorry, excuse me, if you can build software using a regular programming language, I mean, that's pretty good. But of course, that still doesn't help someone who has no idea about this stuff or what it's about. So there's two things maybe I'll call out that we make it easy for people to build on Algorand. The first is we have this like team of, we call them DevRel, so developer relations. But essentially what they are is like uh, the Genius Bar of the Apple Store. They are a bunch of folks whose job it is to help you learn and get your first app out. So, these engineers, they're from a diverse kind of background. We've got men and women on the team, and they will sit with you on a call. They will walk through the first step. They will bring you on the journey of like writing your hello world. It's a classic computer term for like your first app. The simplest app you can possibly build, and they'll help you get it running on the Algorand computer, right? And then secondly, we run boot camps, right, where you can come along with no knowledge whatsoever and sit down, and they will train you for free. All this stuff is for free, of course, because we can't expect people to pay for this stuff. We want to get people who are passionate, who are young, who maybe don't have the money to pay for training, and so we want to bring that to them. Okay, and so we run boot camps where you can learn, and you will get instructor-led courses. And then on top of that, then for those who want to dive a little bit deeper, we've pushed out over 300 videos over the last year or so that you can watch on YouTube. Some of them are shorts and they're quite quick. Some of them are a little bit longer. And then finally, for those who don't want to engage at that level and just want to have a read, we have some great documentation. Oh, and one last thing. Llama 3, which is Facebook's, or sorry, I should say Meta, as they're called now. It's Meta's version of ChatGPT.
Yeah.
You can basically talk to it, like type sentences, and it will respond back to you. It's like a robot or whatever. We're taking Llama 3 and we're training it on all of our content, all of our documentation, all of our techie things. So we will have a place soon where you can go to the website, like ChatGPT, and just start talking to it about Algorand and how to build on it, and it will talk back to you just like ChatGPT does. So I think that's going to be quite powerful.
Wow. So okay, yeah, it seems like Algorand has a lot of paths for a young audience. But what about babies? What's Algorand doing for babies, John?
We're releasing a new line of dribblers for babies with the Algorand logo. Get your baby
So
representing.
that's pretty amazing. You have an answer for all that. That's great.
I
Um,
see a couple of questions. Sorry, I'm just looking
yes,
through
go
the
ahead.
the thing. Yeah, I see someone asking, have we got a dev Discord? Yeah, we have a Discord. Um, I should know the URL off the top of my head. Let me see. Algorand Discord. It's like Discord Algorand. What is it? Discord.gg/Algorand. Um, and if you go there, yeah, you can join them, and there's the DevRels are there to help as well.
And someone's asking, is Algorand hiring?
Yeah, so is Algorand hiring? Yes, we are. So we're hiring, I think, at the moment for DevRel, and very soon, I suspect we'll be hiring for engineering. So that's everyone from kind of traditional software engineers who maybe don't know much about blockchain, but do have a kind of a traditional background in procedural, imperative, or object-oriented code, and indeed folks who are, interested in cryptography. We also have an internship program as well. You don't have to be some kind of super hyper experienced computer nerd to work with us. We have an internship program across the whole of the foundation, the Algorand Foundation, the company I work for. There's roles there in everything from community all the way to tech.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got another question.
Sure.
And this is a big one for me. So Algorand is working with so many countries. Like you're doing like India, El Salvador, Panama, Bermuda, Italy. Which country just seems to be like soaking up as much Algorand as they can, like a sponge? I mean, I'm talking about the ecosystem. I'm talking about like building into like government digital infrastructure.
So I think at the moment I'd probably say it's India. So we have
Ooh, that's
yeah,
awesome. I'm a
yeah,
big
yeah.
fan of India.
Yeah. Actually, my it's an area that we I don't know how it came about that we focused on it, but we just had a number of people who were super passionate from the community, who were kind of floating around and helping, and then they were like, "Hey, let's make this like a strategic thing. Let's go into India and make it like a focus point." And since then, we have done like a startup lab over there with T Hub. And this is going to accelerate 20 startups, like 20 young companies that are going to be building on Algorand. And we're going to help them launch pilots. And so I think that's, one of the most, fostering innovation is one of the most, I think, important things you can do in an emerging economy. We also have relationships rather out there with SEWA and Mandeshi. So these are serious organizations. And on top of that, whenever we do, like, just more anecdotally, right? Just from experience, whenever we do an event out there, dude, we get like 1,000 people knock at the door. So it's just like, and maybe it's a little bit in the culture, like it's kind of a techie culture out there or whatever. But like, we just see huge amounts of volume of people interested. And then I would say as well, we've just done a memorandum of understanding, which is like legal nerd speak for,
MOU. I just
yeah.
there we go.
There you go, an MOU, which is like, an agreement to explore something together, essentially, with the Nigerian plateau state. So,
Ooh.
yeah, so, and again, Africa is a big emerging
Yep.
economy. It's got lots of people, and again, very interested in tech. But, I remember when you were trying to get me followers, thanks again. You were doing a great job of keeping everyone interested while we waited for people to follow me. And people were saying, where's Algorand? Like, is it just in India? Is it just in Africa? Is it just in this place, that place? It is a global network. So the computers that host Algorand, the people that use Algorand, the developers that build on Algorand, all of these are globally distributed. And so I would say, probably in terms of user base, our biggest volume comes from the United States and Europe, if I'm looking at the stats at the moment. But very closely following behind is India, Africa, and Asia. And so, yeah, we have a genuinely well distributed base of kind of users and indeed developers.
Okay. So let's see. Do you want to answer anyone else's question? Oh wait, no.
Let me have a look.
We're not
Yeah,
talking about price, guys. We don't talk about price. We're not talking about regulation. No, we are talking about building. We are talking about devs. We are talking about dApps.
right. And I should also probably have intro. So I'm John Woods, by the way. Nice to meet you all, by the way, everyone
Okay.
listening. And like, it's I'm the CTO at the Algorand Foundation, which means I'm all things tech. And so I'm not on the legal or compliance side or regulation side, and I'm also not on the finance side. Yeah. So and to be completely honest, we honestly don't know whether the price is going to go up, down, left, or right, or circles.
Yeah. All that matters is what's being built on it.
Right. Well, what we're trying to do is foster adoption and use of Algorand. Algorand is an operating system. Okay, it's a blockchain, sure, but it's essentially an operating system. You write apps for your cell phone, you write apps for Algorand. You write apps for your MacBook, you write apps for Algorand. Algorand runs apps. The only difference between Algorand and your computer is that when Algorand runs apps, it does so in a distributed context. What does that mean? It means that on your computer, your code just runs on the computer in front of you, the cell phone in your hand, the laptop on your lap. On Algorand, when you run code, it's running simultaneously, globally, on hundreds or thousands of computers. And why do I want to do that? You might think, well, why do I want to run it on 1,000 computers at once? Can I just run it on one computer? Answer: it is it allows us to achieve certain properties. So we can detect cheating, we can make sure that everyone obeys the same rules, and what this lets us do is do things like decentralized finance, peer-to-peer tickets, peer-to-peer sales, without having to trust people. So it enables totally new classes of products.
All right. Um, let's see. I just wanted to. I have a couple other questions. I just had one in my. Oh yeah. Okay. So I'm glad you mentioned these other dApps because usually now when people are thinking of blockchain and smart contracts, they're thinking of decentralized finance, they're thinking of DeFi. But
Mm.
what are some non-DeFi apps in Algorand right now that, like, let's say I could just go on my DeFi wallet and start trying to play around with?
Yeah, sure. Great question. By the way, I see some. I'm just like flicking through and I see
Go ahead.
interesting questions. Um, Okay, so what about doing much on the environmental side? Someone else said sounds bad for the environment. I think it's important, right?
Yep.
I've got two babies. I want them to live in a world where they don't have to wear a gas mask to go outside. And so Algorand actually runs at the energy use of about 80 kilowatts. And I know people may not be power engineers in the audience,
Wow.
so like 80, like your kettle at home when when you're making a cup of tea or a cup of coffee,
Yeah.
that's like 3 kilowatts. So
Yep.
let me just use my computer here. So 80 divided by three. So Algorand is like 26 kettles,
There you
and
go.
that's and by the way, last quarter, just last quarter, like January, February, March, Algorand processed billions of dollars worth of transactions and had 400 million transactions. So in a quarter, you have 400 million transactions, and it's using about the power of a Tesla that's charging. And so if your neighbor's charging his Tesla, you're not looking out there and judging him, right? And so I think in a very real way, Algorand's benefit outweighs its energy use. And then one other thing, every year we buy the carbon needed to offset the use of Algorand. So Algorand is actually carbon neutral to carbon negative. Um, but of course, energy is used. But at the same time, I think it's used in a
80
good way.
kilowatts though, like, because I mean, okay, I remember reading 2 years ago that Bitcoin's energy consumption, like for all the miners, is measured in terawatts, right? Am I
Right.
incorrect?
Yeah, no,
So
that's right. But
terawatts is trillions, kilowatts is thousands, guys. So
right.
so we're literally, and a trillion is 1,000 millions. So from what Travis was saying, it sounds like Algorand's energy usage is a millionth of Bitcoin's.
Right. Yeah, very good math, actually. Just live right there. Clearly, you don't need your computer to divide 80 by 3. But here's the thing. I don't even judge Bitcoin really for doing that because, it's kind of like, sure, Algorand for sure is more energy efficient than Bitcoin because it uses, I can get into the tech things, but because it's proof of stake and uses VRFs and it's very energy efficient. And the reason Bitcoin uses tons of energy is, of course, the security of Bitcoin's network is not predicated upon staking, but rather it's based upon running SHA-2 over and over and over and over again. This hashing function, which is computationally intensive, which heats up the CPUs, which heats up the computers, which uses energy. But Bitcoin's cool too. It started the whole crypto scene. On top of that, it is very, very secure, and you got to pay for that security somehow. And so I think proof of work is also an interesting thing. Yeah.
So can you get back to what are some non-DeFi dApps on Algorand that I could just dive into on my DeFi app, on my
Yeah.
DeFi app?
Yeah, so DeFi I think is really it's a great wallet, by the way. I use it myself, but it's one that's I think generally focused on um, I guess on decentralized finance. But let me give you some kind of more
Like Para.
real.
We could do Para.
Yeah, yeah. But okay, perfect. Yeah, cool. Let me give you some more kind of less DeFi based things. So I've got a few that I kind of have tickled my fancy. So the first one is book.io. And you can go to the website, just book.io. And what those guys are doing is that they are building an Amazon Kindle on top of blockchain. And so you might think, well, why would I bother? The answer is when you, like I mentioned earlier, when you have like a Kindle, you're not buying the books, you're buying licenses for the books. And you only have access to those books whilst Amazon's servers are up. And sure, Amazon is a very dependable company, and I'm sure it'll be up for a long time. But you don't really own it. It's not owned by you. It's not self-sovereign, as we say. And so book.io, every time you buy a book on it, it issues a copy of the book on the blockchain. By the way, with an AI generated cover and some very cool NFT to go with it. But essentially, it is a great example of where it's a different way to do things. You're still buying a book. You can still read it on a great quality UI, but that book has been issued on a blockchain in a decentralized context, not as a license on Amazon servers.
Wow.
Maybe another one that's not again not related to finance is Lofty, and so Lofty is a project that does real world asset tokenization. Now this is like super sexy at the moment. Everyone's into this RWA stuff, real world assets, but essentially it's the idea that you can fractionalize real estate. So you want to buy homes, you want to buy houses, you want to invest in properties, you want to invest in condos, but you don't have $500,000 or $800,000 to do it. Using Lofty, you can buy a portion of a house. You can buy a fraction of a house. So maybe you're 18 years old. You don't have $500,000 to buy your first home, but you can buy 10% of a home, or 5%, or 2%, or 1%, or half a percent, or less. And that will allow you to get into the housing market in a way that wasn't possible before.
That's insane. I remember like that's nuts because I talk about this a lot that because of housing prices being so high right now and just because of a lot of economic uncertainty, it is so difficult for the average person to have a road to wealth. And before, like 40 years ago, real estate was the road to wealth that you could have with a minimal education. You own a house, you pay things off, and then you have a line of equity that you could use to take a loan and buy another house. And as long as you're diligent and smart, you are able to prosper. And it looks like that path is narrowing because of high real estate prices and what have you. But the fact that now there can be fractional real estate, that is mind blowing. That is incredible. That is such a huge deal, and nobody knows about it.
And I think what's important about it as well, Gio, is like it's inclusive. And like
Ooh.
I think it's important because like the thing about it is that I know in certain ways we go out of our way to be inclusive sometimes these days with everything. And some people are kind of maybe skeptical about it. But at the end of the day, what you have to remember is I live in Ireland, which is like essentially, of course, Europe. A lot of folks live in the United States, and in both of these regions of Europe and the US, we have access to very high quality banking facilities, financial institutions, and healthcare and other things. That is not the same for billions of people. There's billions of people outside of Europe and the US who really don't have access to the same kind of quality, and for those people they're completely excluded and they don't have a very good existence because of it. And so I like to think that the work that we're doing in these global networks that enable people to be able to be part of some of this stuff is actually changing the lives of people in some of these countries. And maybe one last example I'll give you, just because I don't want to labor the point, but one last example, which is not very DeFi, but is still slightly financially related, is Hisab Pay. And so
Oh yeah.
yeah, I think it's cool. I think this one is cool. So in Afghanistan, of course, a country that's gone through war and also gone through many changes over the last kind of 2 decades or whatever, there are a lot of specifically women who don't have access to independent financial accounts. They don't have a their own money essentially. And Hisab Pay has tokenized the Afghan currency, which is called the Afghani, which is the equivalent of the dollar or the euro. And so they've tokenized, or on blockchain, they've made a representation of the Afghan currency called the Afghani. And specifically for women who are in underprivileged scenarios to be able to have access to a digital version of the Afghan currency. And you might think, well, what are they going to do with that, John? Like send it to each other? Answer, actually, there is now, I believe, last time I read it, there was 10,000 stores or shops within Afghanistan that accepted this digital version of the Afghani, and enabled women to have financial independence. And so this is something that is a very real, humanitarian, impactful thing.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah, it really is. And I think it's
I
very
didn't
important.
know. I didn't know about 10,000 businesses. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I was really impressed too. Because at the end of the day, when you have the blockchain, it's relatively straightforward to tokenize assets. But the harder piece is integrating it with the real world. And so, indeed, when I heard that number as well, I was really blown away by it.
Yeah. So you're in Ireland and you're Irish. So
Yeah.
very important question. What is your favorite cheese and why is it Cashel Blue?
I love it. You've done your research. Um,
I used to be
my
a cheesemonger.
were you?
Yeah, a long time ago. I knew about 400 something different cheeses, and I loved
Okay.
Cashel Blue.
Okay, okay. Since you were a cheesemonger, I'm going to give a real answer to this. My two favorite cheeses, because I just turned 40, and for my cake, my wife got me a cheesecake made out of literal cheese, and so there were four tiers of cheese on this cake, which are my favorite cheeses. So from my least favorite to most favorite, the bottom was a French Comté.
Oh,
The next tier was Colton Basset, which is an English blue.
yep.
After that, there was a Langres, which is a kind of a cheese from Champagne, which is a raw cow's milk with a brandy wash. And then finally, the king of all cheeses that everyone should have is Epoisse, which is again a French.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow. Epoisse. God.
it's my, it's my jam.
Man, yeah, you cut into an applause, the whole room, everyone goes, did something just die? And you're like, yeah,
Yeah,
all of my sadness just died because the
yeah.
applause is open.
I'm
Oh,
I'm a cheese nerd. My cholesterol's too high, but I'm a cheese nerd.
yeah, but what a way to go. You're feeding your soul, man.
Yeah.
It's quantity, it's quality, not quantity. I loved talking up Epoisse when I
Yeah.
would sell it, and I
Oh,
loved bringing it home. Like the stinkier, the better. Oh my gosh, you that?
it's so good. But like, let me get this straight, because I know people are gonna be like, "What the fuck is a poisse?" Um, like I see Sean O'Hara there in the comments. What about American cheddar? It's not even cheddar. Like American plastic cheese is some of the best cheese ever for a burger, and it has a perfect place, just like blockchain. Blockchain's not for everywhere, but that American plastic cheese, that's all I want on my burger.
Yeah, it goes the way it just melts. It distributes perfectly onto the burger.
It's perfect.
America does have some really good cheddars though. Like, like Vermont
Yeah.
has some great cheddars. California has an incredible area of cheddars. There's this one goat cheese in California called Midnight Moon by the Cypress Grove Creamery, and I love that cheese. Like America has some incredible cheeses, but like I like when I want something that that will traumatize a normal person. Europe has it.
Yeah, Europe has it. Yeah, exactly. So good.
Oh, that's okay. Oh, that was a great little. I'm glad I got to know about like your love of excellent cheeses.
Thanks, dude. Let's get together. And by the way, you want to see my love of ports?
Well, yeah, that's I would love that would be freaking awesome. It's funny you say that you have two babies. I have three little ones, two twins that are 5,
Well,
and then my youngest is 3, and we're trying for a fourth.
wow, it's the same as for me because I've got a 5-year-old and who's turning 6 tomorrow, and I have a 2.5-year-old. So we basically have kids at the same age, and we're trying maybe for a third. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh. Okay, all right. Wait, let's get back because, like, I know that I'm sure people are leaving the live. They're like, oh, they're talking about cheese and family. All right.
Yeah. I don't know what
So,
that makes us boomers. Is that the correct term?
yeah, that's it.
Okay.
So what's it like working with the new CMO?
Mark, yeah, Mark Van Leberg is our new CMO. He is so creative. Mark is going to put Algorand on the map. I mean, you can do all this tech stuff for sure. Tech stuff's important. You have to have some real tech chops to succeed in the long term, certainly. Um, but you also need people to be aware. You need to be on shows like this, Joe, with your listeners on this live. We need to be hitting the right notes across the industry in terms of awareness, right? And so Mark joined us, and he's got a wealth of experience. I know he's also just he's a real one. Like, he's just a guy who's got a ton of experience, and he understands product and he understands people, and yeah, he's empathetic and he's wonderful. But maybe his most relevant experience has been his time working at Google. Like, Mark was working at Google when they launched Android, and he was responsible for marketing Android for the first time. And so Mark put Android, the cell phone software, the cell phone operating system, on the map. And so he made Android what it was from a marketing perspective. And he did everything from engaging with Nestle around the KitKat release, all the way to just making Android the inverse of the iPhone. So when Google were marketing, I was like, Mark, what was it like when you were like trying to compete with the iPhone, right? Which had a little bit of a first mover advantage in terms of being one of those glass fronted smartphones. And he said, we sat back and we were thinking, how do we market our phone compared to the iPhone? And the iPhone was obviously an exceptional product. And he said, we made it everything that the iPhone wasn't.
Mm.
We made it open. We made it customizable. We made it flexible. And so by doing that, we really set ourselves apart from the iPhone. And I just think the way he thinks about tech, the way he thinks about products, the way he engages with the community, I couldn't be happier with Mark. Even though I'm an Apple fanboy and I use Apple products, including I'm on an Apple cell phone right now. But
Same here.
yeah, yeah,
Same here.
but he's a great guy.
And honestly, like I have an Apple only out of habit. I can't even tell you if an Apple is better than an Android. I mean, and from everything I've read, an Android is better than an Apple. It's like we just have our phone because it's like I'm used to having it. And then you have people who are like, oh, because it's just better because it's mine. I mean,
But by the way, I see an interesting question just in the
yes.
chat. Andrew Rhodes says, "Can Algorand run LLMs, referring to large language models? 5.3, the Microsoft model just dropped, 2 gigabytes in size." Um, so, so Andrew, the when you're running inference, which is when you ask ChatGPT a question, when you type in like, "Give me the code for X, plan my birthday party," what you're doing there is you're asking the machine learning model to run inference. It takes your words, it converts it to numbers, runs it through the model, and gives you an output. So Algorand and other blockchains cannot run AI models within smart contracts. They just don't have the computational resources within the time and the space confinements of a contract. Because the code has to run every 2.5 seconds in Algorand because that's when the blocks are running. Same with Solana, same with Cardano, same with Ethereum. You can't run incredibly intensive computational tasks within a smart contract on a blockchain. But there are ways that AI and blockchain are going to meet, and I'm really interested in this. So let me talk about two of them. Number one, in the 90s, like when cryptography was just, and I was only like 6 or something, but like, because I'm 40 now. So in the 90s, cryptography was just kicking off in a real way in operating systems and stuff. And the United States took this position that cryptography, so this idea of hiding information, encrypting information, was actually weapons grade technology, right? It was like the equivalent of a gun or a missile.
Yeah.
And so it was illegal to ship certain classes of cryptography outside of the United States, even though it was just mathematics. We're seeing the same thing happen. So in Europe and in the US, we're seeing large language models, so ChatGPT type things, essentially be considered weapons. And so there's trying to set regulation that will say, hey, you're not allowed use a large language model if it's over a certain complexity, if it has too much intelligence. And the way they rate that is by the number of parameters in the model, but it's a bit geeky. But like essentially they're saying if the model's too smart, it's illegal. And so blockchain might have a very important place in avoiding censorship there. So just like you can use blockchain to send transactions to people globally without caring where they live, you can also use blockchain to distribute large language models so that anyone can use them, even if their government decides that they're not allowed. That's
Wow.
number one. I think it's important. The second thing, and it's maybe even cooler, is that we can use blockchains, which are essentially distributed networks of computers, to train large language models in a way where we would, like right now, how does ChatGPT work? The answer is OpenAI or Meta, or who does Llama 3, or Microsoft who does Phi. These companies will spend billions of US dollars on training these models by running them in these data centers with like these rows of computer hardware, and they run for like 6 months. That's costs so much electricity, so much hardware, so much time. That's fine, but the problem is if you ask ChatGPT a certain question, it's going to say, "Sorry, I can't answer that because I'm not politically allowed to, or I'm not interested in answering that question because, hey, I'm not going to tell you how to do a thing that I disagree with."
Yeah. I'm
Well,
centralized. I can't do it.
right, exactly. And so I have this dream now, after speaking to various people in the AI industry, of the idea that we can train and run large language models on the blockchain in a decentralized manner, where both the training and the inference steps, so that's the usage, happens on the blockchain, and these models can be completely open. So they can be completely uncensored and be the most powerful models in the world. And I think, again, this is the emancipation of information that's happening thanks to decentralized networks.
I'm going to write that down. Emancipation of information. That's gonna make me sound so smart when I say that to other people. And yeah, so I'm stealing it. I'm gonna say it's my own thing. That's great.
You're welcome.
Emancipation of information. Can I add a question, or did you have more?
Sure. Yeah, no, of
So,
course, please.
I'm glad you mentioned the cryptography and just the security, like weapons grade stuff. Like, a lot of people are always saying, well, what are we going to do as quantum computing progresses? And don't get me wrong, it's doing very well, but it's still in its nascency.
Hmm.
But from what I remember reading, what's his name? Is it Chris Pikert,
Hmm.
who has introduced state proof tech into Algorand, right? That's him.
Yeah, Chris Bikart. Yeah, absolutely.
So and I know, so is like, but then you also have Falcon. So I was just wondering, like, where does state proof tech and then Falcon come in? Does Falcon introduce state proof tech? Like, what's going on with like the securing of Algorand from like the potential quantum quantum hacking?
Yeah, totally. So let's bring it back to basics real quick.
Sure.
So we have computers like, MacBooks and Dell PCs and like whatever you use in work. And those computers cannot break cryptography. So the reason that we have private information on the internet, the reason that you can encrypt a file and you can only access it if you know the password or you know the cryptographic key, is because regular computers, which we call classic computers or classical computers, they cannot easily break encryption. It will take millions of years for them to break.
Yep.
There's a theoretical type of computer that people call a quantum computer, and the idea here is rather than dealing with ones and zeros, it kind of deals with this fluid one and a zero. Uh,
Qubits.
Qubits, right, exactly.
Superposition. I love reading about quantum computing.
Right. And so I know you're a math guy, so you probably already have this background. But for folks on the live, it's like the idea that like your data is in flux, right? So it can be both a one or a zero at the same time, and it harnesses the power of, as Gio just said, of quantum superposition, which is this idea that a thing is both in this place and that place at the same time.
Yeah.
Now these computers, they don't run in your house. Like these are computers that look like a chandelier, that have to be cooled to like negative 235.
Coldest
So
place in the universe. The coldest place in the universe are the quantum computers.
yeah. Right. They're as like the quantum computers are as cold as like deep space. But like what's interesting is these computers, they're very good at certain problems, at solving certain math. And the math they're good at solving is the very same math we use for cryptography at the moment with normal computers. And so they can essentially like smash this crypto that we use at the moment. And so what does this mean? This means that someone with one of these quantum computers can spend your Bitcoin. They can spend your Algorand. They can, take your ETH. And so don't worry about it because these things don't exist yet. They're probably 5 to 10 years away. We've been saying that for a long time, but that's what we think. Although I have a sneaking suspicion there's probably one in an NSA or Mossad basement somewhere.
Yeah, I
Yep.
agree. 100%. I think DARPA already has it, and they're like, okay, we'll let them have the cheaper models.
Yeah. Well, you know why I think this is because I always like forget about what people say. Look at what they're doing. So like Google added special code to their Chrome browser that everyone uses to defend against these things. A couple of weeks ago, it's called, you can look it up. It's called the Google Chrome Kyber release.
Oh
Um,
my God.
Apple added to iMessage, the blue bubbles. They added to iMessage what they're calling PQ3, so post quantum 3, which is their post quantum implementation. Now, I don't think for one second that an Apple or a Google is spending money and time and human resources building this stuff into their code and into their products unless they're concerned about it. And so, what Apple want to be able to do is come out in 3 years' time when it turns out that this thing was running in an NSA basement and say, "Oh, don't worry, guys. Like we've had you since day one. We're privacy. Don't worry about it." And so, like I look at Apple, I look at Google, I look at OpenSSH, I look at other projects that are putting this stuff in place, and so are Algorand. So we have put in place, as you asked at the start of the question was, what is state proofs? What is Falcon? So Falcon is cool mathematics that lets us secure against quantum computers, and it uses these things called lattices, but I wouldn't, they're it's heavy math,
Yes.
but like it's basically digital signatures that are immune to the qubits, and
Wow.
yeah, and so our marketing term for this thing is called state proofs. So state proofs are like the application of Falcon to the chain. And so right now, Algorand secures itself by signing the history of the blockchain every 10 minutes using these Falcon signatures. And so if there was a quantum computer that emerged right now and it was sitting in front of you, Gio, you could not attack the history of Algorand's transactions. And that's an important thing. But so Algorand, I wouldn't call it quantum proof yet, though, because there's
Quantum
other aspects of
resistant.
Algorand that needs
Quantum
to change.
resistant.
Quantum resistant, yeah, quantum resistant, yeah. And also, we need to look at consensus. The consensus algorithm. We need to look at account signatures. There's other things we need to look at, but Algorand is one of the only chains I know that has made some progress into quantum or
Same.
post-quantum signatures. And you know what's funny? If you go to CoinMarketCap and you look up like quantum blockchains,
URL.
yeah, we're not even in the list,
Yeah.
even though we've done it. So it's
Because
funny.
it's not marketing, and who even knows if QRL is actually quantum resistant? I would not. That's like saying That's like saying like naming your law firm Honest Lawyers LLC. I would just no.
You know what? And here's the thing, dude. You mentioned Chris Picard. He is like a god tier mind. Like Chris is he's like the Snoop Dogg of math. He is like an absolute legend in terms of like lattice cryptography, post quantum technologies, cryptographic schemes. He is someone who's been working on this his entire life, and he's a world class player on this. He's like a Ronaldo or a Messi of this stuff. And you're looking at someone who spent his life doing this, and he's working on Algorand. I do worry about chains that claim to be quantum secure, because I'm thinking to myself, there's not that many Chris's out there, and I'm not sure how you're doing it.
That's you just brought me to another question. It's like I don't think people understand the brilliant minds that are in Algorand. I mean, the fact that Silvio Macaulay, I like one of the most. I mean, again, I'm not the biggest computer person, but he just seems to be one of the most brilliant minds of his time. Won the Turing Award. Just like I think a lot of the tech that is used in cryptography, at least with blockchain, like he helped invent, right? Like he is a co-inventor of a lot of these things, like zero knowledge proof, right? That's him partially. Am I
Right.
correct?
Oh, 100%. So Silvio is a co-inventor of zero knowledge proofs. He invented VRFs. He invented probabilistic encryption. Now, all of these things have Wikipedia pages, but the dude is like, he's a Mozart of cryptography. He is honestly one of the most profound minds of our generation. He's like an Einstein of cryptography, and he has won as you said, the Turing Award. That Turing Award, by the way, is like the Nobel Prize for math and crypto. It's like a very serious thing.
Yep.
And
Comp sci is already hard. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Winning a Nobel Prize in comp sci. I mean,
yeah. I once talked to this incredible cryptographer who has a Wikipedia page. Who's a very famous person, and I said to them, "What do you think of Silvio? I mean, it must have been nice working with him." And they said to me, "Silvio is God." Like and that was the opinion of someone who I consider a god of mathematics and cryptography. So he is no doubt he's a brilliant mind. And which, by the way, made it very easy when I was thinking about taking this role 2 years ago to come and work with people of this caliber, because they're just quite literally world class.
yeah. Yeah, like I mean, and you could even tell how brilliant Silvio is. Like you read his credentials, and okay, and then if you hear him talk about blockchain, but then if you just hear him speak, like at any of his speeches, any of his talks, he's like brilliant but sociable.
Yes, yeah, he is. He is. Yeah.
He's not just like some computer geek who could tell you everything about computers. It's like he could probably tell you about wine, about grass, about
Yeah.
clouds, about blockchain, and just make it all conversational that you can understand.
Yes, he's a very brilliant, and he's lectured for many years. He's been a teacher for many years, and on top of that, of course, he's an Italian guy, so he's passionate and he's lively.
Yeah. Okay. I think like we could wrap up in a couple minutes because like I'm sure you're a busy guy and we've been doing this for over an hour. Um, let's see. I think we actually what project we talked about that. What is it? Ooh. Okay, so this question was brought, like a couple questions were introduced to me from Crypto Trainer.
Hmm.
Love that guy.
Yeah.
And this was just such a good question he asked me to ask. What are some signals to you of teams that can make successful dApps?
Huh. That's an interesting question. So, a team that can make a successful DApp. I mean, this is going to be a little bit of a softer answer than a hard technical one, but I think the answer is they're solving a problem. They have a product that people are going to want to use. I mean, that's got to be the fundamental. Like, I've seen a lot of dApps that are very technically cool, but maybe don't solve real world problems or don't solve problems that are pervasive. And I think with any product, whether it's a bottle of water, okay, from the store that's quenching your thirst, or whether it's a sophisticated cell phone that you're going to have with you as a digital companion, it's got to be addressing a problem that is a requirement that a user has. And so I think the most successful recipe for a great DApp is kind of twofold. One, a strong technical team that know how to deliver an application that is not only functional but is true to the value proposition of blockchain. And what do I mean by that? I mean that the thing works to solve problems for people, and it works well, but also that it's designed in a way that is self-sovereign, that is decentralized, that is like legit blockchain style. Then, on top of that, I think you really need that entrepreneurial mind that's able to kind of understand what is the problem we're addressing, and that person doesn't have to be technical. That person just needs to know, markets and that kind of stuff, and the product and the person and the customer, really, rather.
Perfect. All right, John, this was such a great talk, and thank you for being so patient with me while I was trying to get you followers.
Listen, what I'm going to do, I love this conversation, and so what I'm going to do, I'm going to get myself 800 more followers, and then I'm going to come back on and I'll turn on the video. Okay.
I would love that. I would love to interview you again. You just let me know, and we'll talk. We'll talk because like this was so eye opening. It was so educational for me, and for anyone who's curious, I am gonna upload this interview on YouTube, and I'm also gonna dissect it. I'm gonna cut out some pieces, and I'm gonna put highlights on my TikTok. And yeah, if you're not following John Allen Woods, please follow him. He is the CTO of Algorand. To me, he is one of the most influential people in blockchain and what it can do for the world to make the world a better place.
Oh, thank you so much, Gio. And maybe I'll just sign off with a very quick message, like 20 seconds. Um, we've just released AlgoKit 2, which is like Visual Studio Code or Xcode or Android Studio. It's like the basic app you need to build for apps for Algorand. And you can build those apps now in Python. And later this year, we're going to be rolling out consensus incentives. And this is really important. So if you're holding Algorand as of Q3 this year, you will be able to stake that Algorand and get rewarded for staking it, for securing the network. So you'll be securing the network for staking the algo that you own, and the network will reward you just like it rewards people in Bitcoin when they mine Bitcoin. And so these are two big changes, one that's just happened and one that's coming up. But we have a great roadmap, and I'd love to come back on sometime, Gio, in the next couple of
Absolutely.
months and chat with you.
Absolutely, John. Thank you so much.
Thanks, dude. See you later.
Let's see you later. All right, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm gonna, as soon as I can upload this video, it's gonna go on YouTube, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.